All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Kumite Lifestyle Podcast. Today, I'm really excited for this one because I get to sit down with someone I've gotten to know through Gracie University Instructor Certification Program. A fellow instructor, martial artist, and all-around great human being, Thomas McGuin. I met Thomas a few years back through jiu-jitsu, and right away I could tell this guy wasn't just about techniques, he's about the purpose behind them, his passion for teaching, his faith, and the way he builds community through jiu-jitsu is something I've always respected. In this episode, we dive deep into what it takes to run a successful jiu-jitsu school, how to balance teaching and learning, and why focusing on the 97% of students, not just the competitors, truly defines a great instructor. We'll also get into his personal journey, his strong foundation in faith, and even the collection of classic wrestling figures from the Attitude Era. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this conversation with someone I'm proud to call a friend and fellow instructor, Thomas McGuin. Let's get into it. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Kumite Lifestyle. Today, we are joined by the one and only Thomas McGuin. And Thomas, we're excited to have you. And first, I just want to say that's an amazing background you have right now. All those figures back there. So what is that?
Yeah, so I collect professional wrestling figures like WWE back when it was really cool. Probably when we were watching it, the Attitude Era with Hogan and Sting. But yeah, so I got a little out of hand, but yeah, like that's what this is.
No, it's cool. And I'm 35 now. And how old are you?
39.
So we're right in that same era. And I remember collecting figures as well. Mine was actually more the sports cards, but I did have a couple action figures. My favorite one was Goldberg and Stone Cold, and yeah, it was definitely a different time for sure. And it kind of defined our childhood because it gave us something to look forward to. So no, it's cool that you've man, it's like I'm reminiscing just looking at that stuff. But
Yeah, Goldberg was pretty cool because you remember that really long streak he had, and
absolutely
you'd tune in on Nitro and see if he'd have like a 2-minute match and it'd be like explosive. So yeah, Goldberg was pretty dope.
And I remember during that time, man, and as a WWE fan or wrestling fan, so you had Goldberg in the WCW, and then you had Stone Cold in the
Yeah.
WWF. And for the longest time, I thought they were related because they looked alike. But I watched a podcast probably about a few months ago. It was a random wrestling podcast. I was going down a rabbit hole one night, and they were saying how like WCW and WWF, they did that on purpose. They wanted to make a copycat of Stone Cold. So that's how they introduced Goldberg to the WCW. But I don't think they were ever planning on Goldberg having the success that he had so fast. But it just worked out. We have two icons, different shows, I guess rivals, but they kind of have the same image. So I always thought that was pretty interesting.
That makes sense. The black trunks, the black boots, the bald head. Yeah. Okay, I always like because they look identical, but one just an absolute animal, and the other one was just kind of like a badass, you know.
For sure. And then years later, they kind of join the same show, and then you see them almost like collabing with each other. So it's
Yeah,
cool how it
yeah,
comes full circle.
that's cool.
But yeah, man, I want to thank you again for coming on. So guys, I met Thomas officially when we were out at Gracie University. Man, like what was that, 3 years ago?
Yeah, about 3 years
And
ago.
yeah, and it was January, and I remember actually seeing you. It was both your brother and you. So Thomas has a brother, John, and very big into martial arts, MMA, and jiu-jitsu. So we'll explore that. But I remember specifically when we were out on the mats and we were doing the Gracie Combatives test. I think the instructors and candidates were partnered up, and that was right when the 2.0 was kind of getting rolled out and the videos were getting released. And I remember Henna were saying, "Hey guys, for headlock escape from the mount, prevent the get up." Most of us were doing it I guess the 1.0 variation where we
Yeah.
use our north leg and we're kind of trailing, but he asked you to do it, and man, you did it so flawlessly. I'm like, "Oh, that's sick, dude." And I say, "Yep, that's Thomas McGuin." And I just remember you like always had a biggest smile on your face. And then actually my first introduction to you before we get into it was a video where you and your brother, I guess, were in your gym, and you probably know what video I'm talking about. So it was the I guess it was like a challenge video, and the thing that really stood out was like your brother was so he's very nonchalant, very compliant, very almost going with the flow. So that's kind of cool what jujitsu can do. So let's
Absolutely.
start. Yeah, so let's start off with that. What is that video all about? Was that scripted? Was that, real take us there because I'm gonna do a little snippet of that clip when I upload this, but I wanted to kind of get your perspective.
Yeah, so we just invested money. We put both of our money together, which wasn't much, to build this gym. So it was, I think we were just finishing up the floors and putting in the mats. And my little brother was over at this restaurant and kind of just started chatting with somebody. And I guess he was like, I'm a purple belt. And he's like, oh, we have a gym like two doors down we're building. So he ended up bringing him over to see the gym. And I tend to be like pretty gullible to where if you say if you say you're a purple belt or a brown belt, I'm like I'll just tend to believe it. I don't know why anybody would
Yeah, lie
lie
about
about
that.
that. But my twin brother John, he's got a really good like BS radar, So when he came in, he said that, and he was like, yeah, I'm a purple belt, and then he said he was a cop too, and we're very involved with law enforcement around here, and we have been a lot when we were doing a GST back with Heat On
Yep.
years ago up in Michigan. Um, so John kind of was like, "Yeah, all right, do you know this cop?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then he said something about him. We're like, "Oh, he definitely knows this guy." And but John's like, he doesn't just I don't know, kind of like smelt the BS. And
Sure.
um, we're we s- we pretty nice guys, like we're Christian guys. We're not out to like embarrass people or hurt people. So John did like a friendly roll with him, and you could tell like in a matter of seconds,
Yeah.
it's not even a white belt.
Yeah.
So it's crazy because you watch those Gracie in action videos from back in the day, and they're
Yeah.
always like round two, and round two happens, and same thing that happened round one happens in round two, and I think they maybe went one more time, and you could tell John he just felt really bad for him. We offered him free training or just to come like kind of like pick it up a little bit and integrate him into the world of jiu-jitsu because you could tell there's some type of confidence deficiency or something going on for you to just go out and make claims of something that you're not. But he never ended up showing back up. Actually, I think he ended up getting arrested like a couple months later. So like, oh well, he could have used jujitsu because it's
Yeah.
such a therapeutic thing.
For sure. No, that's interesting because I was gonna actually ask what the follow-up was to that. But yeah, but you just told me. So it's crazy how like, yeah, man, like as a lifelong martial artist, it's like I know what I'm capable of, but I also know what I'm not capable of either. So there's definitely a lot of truth to it. But and like you mentioned law enforcement, and that's something that I've always kind of pondered because my instructor, Howard Steele, he's actually on the road now teaching a GST. And we just had and we've had so many conversations with officers in the past. We have officers that train here, and it's unfortunate, man, that they go through their police academy, they receive some type of training, and when we're teaching, we say all the time, like, what would an untrained person do, or what would an untrained officer do? But the truth is, they are trained, but they're not trained sometimes the way that's efficient. So it's
Yeah,
it's awesome that you guys provide that, but it's also kind of scary that there's officers and people out there that have that crazy ego and they think they know something when really, they don't. And if there's the one thing that jujitsu has taught me, and I'm sure it's taught you, or it's reminded us every day that, the mats don't lie. And
100%.
when, yeah, so when your brother was doing what he was doing so playfully, and people don't realize the scalability of jujitsu, they think, oh, it's just arm locks and chokes, but you can do a lot by doing so little. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so like that was interesting. And then your school took off, what, like shortly thereafter. So how long have you guys had that school, and are you guys still in the same location?
Well, we've had that school since 2018, and God blessed us to where it grew pretty fast. And in 2020, we decided before like the COVID stuff hit, we decided to move to a bigger location. So like right when we signed the lease and bills were due,
Yeah.
everything got shut down, which was an absolute nightmare.
End of the world,
Um,
man.
Unbelievable. So yeah, we've been doing it since 2018, so a little over 7 years. Before that, we would train with Chet Skimmelhorn. He's a black belt underneath the Gracies. Actually, he was one of the original.
Yeah, old
I
school.
think he's very old school. And Horion did something similar to what the brothers are doing with the ICP, but he had like a smaller group, and I think he was the only one who lasted through Horion's kind of ICP, if you will. So
Yeah.
we were training there every single day. Like we sacrificed a lot from like 18 years old to about 30, and we would have Wednesday night jujitsu. He wouldn't have any class, so we had this building in the back of my parents' house, and no heat, no air conditioning. So we would go back there. We'd offer just free jujitsu to the people around our area to come train with us, because we would drive about an hour and 10 minutes away every single day to go train with Chet. Um, and that's kind of when we started, back when we were like blue belts. And as an instructor, you work out, no matter if you're a blue belt, a purple belt, a black belt, you work out kinks as you're instructing, to where, a couple years down the line, you find your voice, you find kind of like this approach on who you are as an instructor. And you like, there's always embarrassing things that you're like, I cannot believe I showed that the wrong way, or I can't believe I said this. Like, I would never say that. But that's the only way. Experience is irreplaceable. So we had a lot of experience running, just like kind of like almost like a Gracie garage, if you will, but it wasn't like an official Gracie garage back then. So about, yeah, officially 7.5 years, but I've been working on it for a while, I guess.
Yeah, so that's how long you guys have had this school. How long you been training? So like when did you start jujitsu? So it's kind of backtrack uh,
Yeah.
almost to the present day. So I know you mentioned Chet, who's a legend in his own right.
Yeah.
Um, did you start with Chet from the beginning, or like where did you like where did you essentially start, Thomas?
So we started, John got two books, a BJ Penn MMA book and this Hoist Gracie, like we have BJJ Fanatics now where you can kind of upload anything. But back
Yeah.
in my day, we had books like where it was like 10 pictures of a move, and there would be descriptions on what's going on, and you kind of like follow the snapshots. So that we started kind of on our own then. And my twin brother was a phenomenal wrestler in high school. So I wasn't. Like, I actually got this nickname trying to wrestle like him, that my friends would call me the sucky twin, because I was so bad at wrestling. So I did it for a year and quit. And so John was very interested after high school just to continue his grappling. And he saw this. I think it was like Hoist Gracie and Matt Hughes had a match, and
Yeah.
he was like, what is this Gracie stuff? So he buys this Hoist Gracie thing. We're kind of training on our own. And then maybe a year down the line, about like 18 and a half, 19, we officially started with Chet Skimmerhorn out. He's in Fort Wayne now, but he had a gym in LaGrange,
Yep.
which is really like, it's a legendary gym. They're when we walked in, it's not what you would imagine, like what we as instructors offer today, like me and you were. It's like all walks of life. Chet had a lot of, there were still like, a girl there, and where an older person, but there were like dogs. Like, we live in like Amish country, and like Amish muscle, farm muscle. There's a legendary guy, like I don't know if you've ever come across him, Abram Bottles. Just, he got his black belt at like 27 years old underneath the Gracies.
Yeah.
Fought once, won the fight. He even had a match as a brown belt, and he choked somebody unconscious with a cross choke standing up. Like, if you can imagine, like
Yeah.
that should never happen, but he was unreal. So yeah, we started about 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago.
Man, that's awesome. And it's crazy how like fast time goes. I'm sure that
Yeah.
you could say that, but I feel like the sport and just jujitsu has evolved over time. I've only been doing jiu-jitsu now for, man, it's actually 10 years. Yeah, 10 years, excuse me. And I started in 2015. And I remember, so I kind of dabbled into it maybe a little bit beginning, like maybe 2010, 2012, because I wrestled in high school too. And I always had interest in jiu-jitsu, but man, like I was like, jiu-jitsu is tough, and like finding a place where you, and again, maybe it's an ego thing because, I come from a, heavy karate background. I've competed all my life. I've had great success. So I wanted that to translate pretty early on in my jiu-jitsu career. But as we know, things take time. And my instructor, Howard, at the time, he was with a ex-business partner. And kind of like, I mean, you like, said it with that kind of the old school mentality. It was definitely a lot rougher.
Yeah.
Compared to now. So my first introduction to jiu-jitsu wasn't pleasant, and I can just say that straight up. I got beat up by an instructor, and it kind of left a sour taste because I knew jiu-jitsu was for everyone because that's how they advertise it, but I didn't feel it was for everyone because I'm like, all right, like I shouldn't be getting beat this bad because I know something, but jiu-jitsu is a different like world now, and just seeing how fast it's really taken off. I feel like every street corner has jiu-jitsu. Every white belt has an Instagram account. Like, You know what I mean? So it is interesting there in that sense. So awesome. So you've had a chance to be in this plateau now for a while. So let's talk about your competition days. So I know both you and your brother have competed. When did you start competing? And was that initially something that you wanted to do, or did you kind of feel like not obligated, but you felt at the time it's like, okay, people are competing. This is probably what I should do too.
Yeah, so I actually I competed pretty fast, and again like the I didn't have a very like I had a competitive football background, but just one-on-one wrestling from back in my high school days was not a great experience. So it's not something I really was biting at the bit to do. But my
Yeah.
twin brother was competing, and everybody at our gym was competing. So and the gym, like you said, like I kind of compare like it's apples and oranges now, but back then like you were just thrown into the fire.
Yeah.
And some people come out like a lump of gold, maybe like 3 to 5 out of 100 people, come out like, oh, lump of gold. The other people who need jujitsu get burnt alive. And they
Yeah.
unfortunately lose something that they needed. Luckily, I had my twin brother who kept me in it. So it took about, you know, back in those days, the Gracies got a bad rap for online blue belts,
Mm.
and I got my blue belt in about 5 to 6 months, and this is when people were saying a lot of things. So it was nice to go compete. Now I had a home gym as well, and they always recommended, if there's a Gracie uh, at the time, like it was a certified training center back then. You need to go train there, but if you don't have any jiu-jitsu, this is what it's for.
Yeah.
uh, so I went and competed, and I think people thought like when they saw Gracie blue belt, they were kind of on the Reddit boards and stuff, and it'd be like an easy kind of like pass. But I ended up doing very well. Like I remember grappling my first match like a month 5 in a blue belt tournament, and it went like somebody touched me, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's like doesn't feel like John, my twin, or it doesn't feel like Abram or this guy Warren or Thane from back in the day. These guys who were purple and brown belts when purple and brown belts didn't even exist. It felt like
Yeah.
so I did pretty well pretty early on, but I think I think it was quite surprising to me because of my experience, my past experience in grappling.
Yeah, and I think having your brother there, like you said, because I can tell there's so much love that you have for your twin. It's awesome you guys have
Yeah,
that connection, just him pushing you, and then when you're out there competing with other people, you realize like, oh wow, like I can do this, you know?
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's kind of like that aha moment, you know? And like as a purple belt man, like I'm starting to kind of get those moments where I'm like, all right, like I'm starting to kind of, feel my niche here, because it does take a while, some people struggle out and some people just, pick it up more naturally. So, nah, man, that's awesome. So you were
yeah.
competing there for a while and both you and your brother. So let's talk about when you guys initially decided to go the instructor route because I'm sure before you even decided to become a CTC, you and your brother were already teaching, I'm sure, or helping out. So talk about some of your early experiences teaching because teaching and training are two different things in my opinion. And not everyone is suited to be an instructor. I mean, let's just be real, but there's something special when people choose to go through the certification that we did, and we can touch on that. But before that, what are your early memories of teaching a class or maybe even a private lesson?
Yeah, I remember like briefly going to Hito and Gracie seminar, and he was telling people, guys, jiu-jitsu is getting exposed to the country, and anybody in here could run a school. Like if this is what you love to do, like kind of like put it in the back of your head because this is something you can do. You just need to be the expert in your area. And I remember taking that like very serious. My twin brother's path was he really wanted, and I fully believe he had full capability of making to the UFC and fighting up there, but circumstances and timing and luck, some things just happen and don't happen for some people. And for me, I always thought, I'll be the vehicle to his success, where I'll kind of be the best training partner I could be. I remember I would learn how to hold mitts and kind of help him in any way I could. We trained, it was honestly, if I talk about how much we trained, it's not like I sound like I'm kind of lying. Like it's so much training we did together. And then I was like, man, he'll be my vehicle to my success. So we'll kind of help each other out. And um, so yeah, I always had in the back of my head teaching. So I would try to like take like the lowest common denominators in class and try to bring them up while John was kind of like forging his way in the fight world. I was really focusing on how to enhance my ability to teach. And teaching is interesting. Like being a student, it's very like a selfish thing, to where it's just about your growth. But as an instructor, like you have to like widen the lens, and instead of taking from the well, you have to like pour into the well, and that can be quite a challenging thing. Like, where do you get the water from? How much water does the well need? Like some people are super parched, like some
Yeah.
people don't want it. Some people receive things very well, and some people already know, like you try to tell them something, they saw it on YouTube. So there's this maturation process to where you help the people that really want to be helped, like, that their cup's poured out, you fill that cup over and over again. And they're really phenomenal to teach. And there's other students where it can almost, like, I remember at the beginning I would get not like irritated, like, I'm
Yeah.
here to help you, and it's like you don't trust me, or like I take it very personal.
Yeah.
Like, do it this way, don't do it the way you saw it on YouTube or on this video. But you learn that people are people, and they have different journeys in jujitsu, and your job is to help walk them, like guide them along their journey, not your journey, not the way you see them growing. It's just they're here for all different reasons. But that takes it just the experience is the only way to really help cultivate that.
Yeah.
Uh, and staying a student, though, as you're trying to learn how to teach, and teaching is extremely important as well. And a lot of times that can get kind of lost in the cause where you sacrifice your training. As we could talk about, like, we have the Gracies have a high pedigree they like to keep. So there's certifications you have to go in LA, and they want to see you. And there's videos you have to submit. They want to see if you're kind of like a continuing education program that you would see with a lot of professional careers in the marketplace.
Yeah.
um, there's a really it's like it really is that duality of the yin and the yang, where there's the teacher is always the student, and the student should, if you want to be the best in your art, you should be ready to pass down the deposit of the technique or the art or the essence so the student should be teaching, even if you're not a teacher, but the teacher should always be a student. So they don't they're people try to divorce those two, but they cannot be divorced
Yeah.
if you're really trying to harbor the essence of the art.
Yeah, bro, it's such a fine line too. And like there's two things that you said that really stood out about the instructors, because I mean, I feel like there's a lot of teachers that focus solely on just that, but they're not progressing in their own abilities. And Henner talks about, Henner mentioned that every single time I've gone to ICP, he says, make sure you're putting yourself first in front of your students so you have more to give. But that can be a hard thing, because it's comfortable to just teach,
Yeah.
it can be hard to do both. And yeah, I've seen it where it works, where, instructors are still training, but I've also seen it where they're kind of laxed and then they wonder why they can't retain students. So there's definitely something to where you got to stay sharp. And like Ben Zapata said, be the hardest worker in the room. And when he said that at the ICP that we were at, that really stuck with me. It's like not just being the hardest worker when you won, it's always being the hardest worker. So I think that mentality. And then you said something that it's nice to know, Thomas, that all CTCs face the same problems kind of within their student core, because yeah, we have students that as soon as they graduate or as soon as they transition in the master cycle, man, do they go down this whole YouTube rabbit hole. And it's like everything that we taught them, they either forget or they're like, like I don't need that. Because, bro, I've heard people say, oh, it's just combatives, it's just basics. Yeah, bro, it's like the ABCs. If you don't know the ABCs, you can't write, and it's getting that into people's minds. That's been the hardest challenge sometimes as an instructor. Sure, like you get the students that they get it, and like you said, it's like the sponge effect. Like you can train them, teach them, and they're just so open to it. But then you have those students where you kind of have to, wheel them back, say, hey, you're going a little bit, further right now. But again, everyone's journey is different. And I'm glad that you clarified that, because as instructors, we have to remember that, we can only, do so much. And something that Howard has always told me, we might not be the instructor for everyone. We've had people come and go, and, people find their own way. But as long as we can wholeheartedly do what we feel is right, which we do, I think that's the best. So yeah,
I think
it's
that's important, that like what you said, like we might not be their solution to what they're looking for. and we can take that very personal, or we can kind of understand like it's either everything's personal or like nothing's personal. And
Yeah.
the better decision is like, yeah, nothing's really personal. It's really not. The world doesn't. It's not centered around you. And
Yep.
we've had some just growing in, like, you kind of like, I kind of see where the karate, Cobra Kai, and Mr. Miyagi come from. Some people are like, they do it this way, and they kind of identify us with a certain way of jujitsu. Um, and you just realize like, hey, like, you don't want to get into anything with anybody, but it's like there are certain schools for certain people, and we want to be welcome and open arms to all people, but not like, we never want to talk down about, like, we're the only Gracie school or we're the best. It's like, no, um, we can talk about like how the benefits of who we are and what we do. But yeah, there's definitely great options for people for what they're seeking. And a lot of people come in like they're watching the UFC and they want to be MMA fighters, and it's like, hey, we're here for jujitsu. If you want to learn jujitsu, that's great. I want to
Yeah.
roll right away. I need to, I wrestled in high school, and you kind of tell them, hey, there's a process to growth here.
Yeah.
Uh, and they don't, they see things a certain way, and you tell them like, hey, there's 3 other gyms locally. And there's a couple that allow rolling right away, and you can check them out, shop us, shop them, and kind of see what you like. There was something else you said with like it's just the combatives, or it's just blue belt stripe one. And
Yeah.
I had a conversation with a student right before I actually broke my neck, and about a year and a half ago, and I asked him. He was just super deep into the whole the funnel of YouTube, like you said, just this rabbit hole to that one to, and I was like, are you watching blue belt stripe one or two? Like, because this is your floor, this is your foundation, this is what gives you the ability to go and like, if you like the trees, like you can look at the leaves when you have like a healthy roots and a healthy trunk. And are you still making sure you're brushing up on the foundation? And he's like, to be honest with you, like, I don't, like, he was a two-stripe blue belt. He's like, I don't think blue belt stripe one's kind of, I feel like it's beneath me. And I don't know if the name, the curriculum that we call it blue belt stripe one, but I
Hmm.
have to like reiterate to the students, especially the master cycle students, that when I say, hey, you can access this technique on BBS2 or BBS3 lesson, whatever, that the most important techniques are techniques that we present to you guys first. Like,
Hmm.
if you're looking for black belt techniques, those are the niche techniques that aren't used very often. They don't work that well. The most important techniques are the ones we're showing you. Like, number one technique for us is like trap and roll. That's why it's class number one. It's not because it's a white belt technique. It's because it's a foundational technique that you absolutely need. And like, if you're going to carry a bag of jujitsu of 100 techniques, those are probably the first 100-ish techniques we're going to show you. I'll never forget. My twin brother was exceptional. He's the tip of the sword in our school. Like, he's an unreal jiu-jitsu practitioner. And I hurt my knee when I was at Chet's. I was a blue belt, no stripe blue belt, and I'm watching my twin brother roll. And I have my knee hoisted up on this chair. And I'm just watching, like, all right, so what is he doing that I'm not doing? And I'm looking for certain techniques to ask him to show me. And I'm watching him control knee lines, make sure he has underhooks, the most simplistic things that you learn in side control and mount control and smart knee. He's winning the smallest basic battles that most people, when you teach these techniques, they're like, yeah, yeah, I already know how to do that. It's like, no, he was beating people in the details, almost like how Hickson called them, like invisible details.
Yeah.
But it's the techniques that are shown, articulated, but that just for some reason, kind of, I want to see the arm lock. I want to see the grips. So yeah, like, that resonates when you say, yeah, it's just the combative. It's just your BBS one.
I hear it all the time too. And something that may help you, and I mean, or a little tip that's something that I've learned is when people say, oh, but I don't feel like watching BBS Stripe 1, I say, all right, well, listen, instead of calling it BBS 1, the rest of Jiu-Jitsu Stripe 1, the rest of Jiu-Jitsu Stripe 2. And I remember having that
Yeah.
conversation and they're like, oh, that makes sense. I'm like, yeah, because if there's over thousands of techniques and variations in Jiu-Jitsu, combatives is the heartbeat because that's why we pumped that in the beginning. But I think the label BBS 1, because they think, oh, it's just a blue belt Stripe 1, like I can just get my stripe if I just keep coming to class, Granted, yeah, but there's got to be some level of progression there. So, man, it's reassuring to know that, every CTC, or at least, like your CTC faces the same things that we face. So I find comfort in there,
And I'm sure it's like that with, you talk with other
everywhere.
instructors everywhere, and yeah, I kind of tell them like the blue belt is the ocean of technique. You're just in there like a sponge, and unfortunately, you're going to forget more than you remember, but you're just
Yeah.
absorbing technique. And at purple belt, you're systemizing what you've learned, So, but blue belt's just you're jumping into the deep end, into the sea of the ocean of techniques, and you're just absorbing what you can and enjoying it. But it
Yeah.
is, as a blue belt, we've been blue belts. It's a deep, choppy waters, calm waters, can't see land. Been a two stripe for over, like there's a lot of mental gymnastics that you go through as a person, which helps cultivate your path to black belt. Because black belt, remember Hedon telling us when we were blue belts, we were out in LA, and he's like, if you could think the way I think, you'd be a black belt tomorrow. And he wasn't saying, you would literally wear a black belt, but he was like, it's the way you think. And you don't get that until you become an adult. Like you see I have a 5-year old, and then you see like teenagers, and then you see young 20-year-olds, and they're trying to like find their way in life. But then you get into your 30s and you get into your 40s, and you start understanding what wisdom really is. And that's
Yeah.
that's what he was saying when we were blue belts. Like, if you could think a certain way, you'd be a black belt. And he'd say like mentally, like you would be it tomorrow. I was like, oh man, how do I do that?
Yeah, it's like the hero-ness, as they say.
Yeah,
It's his aura about him.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Man, I gotta ask, since we're kind of on the topic of our students, was waiting to have your students roll a little bit later, was that maybe tough for maybe someone like yourself that came up through a different background? Because it doesn't happen so much now, because everyone, when they come in, because I feel like 99% of people that come in through our doors they want to learn self-defense. We don't really have anyone harping like, oh, things I want to roll now. Because plus, it's the way we explain it. We emphasize safety, of course, and self-defense based driven. But do you feel like, I mean, can students benefit rolling early on as opposed to what a CTC has to offer, of course, because I know we are at CTCs, but like as a black belt, bro, and like I respect your input on it, and I would love to kind of get, your opinion on it. But how do you feel about waiting to grapple? Because Howard always says if I can prolong someone's journey in the beginning, we're more likely to keep them over time. And that was pretty profound. However, we all know people that start rolling right away, and they don't have to be freaks or athletes. Maybe they just have great training partners and, grappling partners. But like, where do you feel on that stance, man?
Yeah, I totally agree with Howard. Like when we can keep them longer, that means they're doing jujitsu longer. So we always want like a win-win.
Yeah.
And there's there's people always fighting for the 2 to 3% of athletes in jujitsu, where it's like roll first and it's going to benefit you. There are people where it'll benefit, but it's just such a small number.
Yeah.
And the reason why we're teaching and we're running gyms and is to help not the 3%, it's to help like the 97%. It's like they're the ones who need it. And that 3%, they're the warrior. But at some point, probably never in their life have they just been the warrior in the garden. It's like for the first time in your life, just sit in the garden and pay attention to what's growing around you. Help cultivate this like this more of like a samurai, this code of who you are as a warrior, rather than just pulling out the sword and attacking the day. Like cultivate this like essence. I always say like I am a Christian, but if there was no God, I would say like this is as spiritual as you can get, like martial arts. And um, probably never. Like we get a lot. We're in a wrestling country in Indiana, and we get a lot where I've wrestled. And it's like your whole life you've been grappling. Like for the first time in your life, just like be still and absorb technique, pour into other people, because it's just it's a short road to where you like in the long scheme of things. Like it's a short time where you're not rolling. We actually had before we became an official CTC, we were McGuin Jiu-Jitsu, and we allowed wipeouts to roll because that's the way we came up.
Yeah.
And it was a mess. Like there's a couple students we still have, and they're phenomenal, but those are like they're like the 3% of people. There's
Yeah.
other people where they had really nasty injuries or their knee was popping, and I mean, you can only roll like that for so long at a certain age. It's like you have to be 3% of the population, and then you have to be ages like 17 through like 28, 30. But outside of that, like that scope, there's not enough fruit to justify saying, yeah, we should all roll. So yeah, I don't, the pros outweigh the cons way much for having them just wait. The
Yeah.
culture too in the gym is phenomenal when you have people coming. It's like they have these classes coming up together, and the person who's aggressive learns how to be. It's like this therapy to them, to where they learn to be more sensible, and they have this different, I almost like instead of this linear approach, like this more cyclical approach where they're kind of like looking at things from all angles. And the person who would never be able to roll like right away, they create this ability, this courage, this confidence, to be able to roll. So it is, again, it's like that's why you get that duality in martial arts. It is great for both people for totally different reasons.
Yeah. No, that's just, I mean, yeah, man, like you did nailed it right there. And that's awesome that you can share that perspective because because you've seen it both ways. And when you said that you had white belts rolling, it was terrible. It just like you said, injuries were happening and we can
Yeah.
only control so much as instructors. But yeah, um like anytime I get a chance to ask like a veteran black belt or someone that's been in the industry for a while, I always love to get their mindset of like how do you feel about rolling in the beginning as opposed to waiting? And obviously we see the benefits to it, of course. I remember recently I was down at the beach and I ran into his name is Brad Court. He's an old school black belt from PA. He's been competing for a long time, man. Like he was part of like Lloyd Irvin's original crew before, all that went down. But and I was just asking him, just having a conversation. I said, man, if there's one thing you could do different, what would it be? And he said something along the lines, man, I probably wouldn't have pushed my body so hard. I wouldn't have cared so much about a medal. And the way that I took that was like, if he could have prolonged some of his training, it just made sense on why Henry Hedon have packaged GU the way it is. Because it really is, in my opinion, one of the most well organized. It just makes sense, and us being through that.
Yeah, and in the grand scheme of things, we tell them white belts can roll. It's just the Gracie Combatives belt is still a white belt. It's just us, like you're hitting this point of technical mastery. So we're like, you're not a blue belt. So when they say white belts can roll, we're like, well, technically, if you go to a tournament as a Gracie Combatives belt, you're still a white belt. So
Yeah.
like a full-fledged white belt, for us, it's a technical belt. We want to see like you master the technique and understand what shoulder locks are and escapes are, and there's a liability gap. Like you learning technique closes that liability gap, and the more athletic you are, that there's more skill that needs to be grown to close that gap. And when you get your Grace Combatives belt, like technically you'll still be a white belt and you'll be rolling, but there's just the process is gonna, like, you're gonna reap so many more benefits. I just had neck surgery in January, so like the way I abused my body uh, totally contributed to what I had to go, and I wouldn't want anybody to go through what I just went through. So and even our approach in jujitsu, I couldn't come back and do what I'm doing today. Like I'm actually, I'm going to be rolling tonight. I've been rolling for a couple weeks now. If my approach was, kill or be killed or compete, there would be no place for me after neck surgery. What they've cultivated, I can go through I've been through some bad injuries, and my approach coming back to it, it allows me to participate and partake of jujitsu, and can be on the mats.
Yeah. And as I say, train the grandmaster way till you're 95.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's no doubt about it.
All right, so now let's shift over to more of the coaching mindset, right? So we've both been through the same instructor certification program, and for those watching, the ICP, which is what we're talking about, the Gracie University, in my opinion, is hands down. It's very challenging, but it's also rewarding because when you're in a room full of blue belts, purple, brown, and blacks, and even sometimes veteran black belts. I had Sean Newser on last week, and he's been a CTC now for I think a year or so, but he was a old school Megaton Diaz black belt, and he was just saying how that transformation from being a CTC and like as we're talking about just that culture and just it's a huge shift, but it's a shift that's needed, especially if you want to grow in this industry and be a liable business, you know? So anyone that's been through that process can understand. So now when you're teaching, right? So both you and your brother or CTC owners, you guys teach using the, the accredited, I guess, curriculum, if you will.
Yeah.
So when you're teaching, right, what is your mindset? And the reason why I'm asking you this is because when I teach, Thomas, I'm kind of copying a little bit of different people, meaning like I take like something that Howard's taught me, I take something that Henner says, or just like so many people, and it's kind of like a melting pot of my personality. I mean, it's all me out there teaching, of course, but I'm just curious because you've been teaching now for a while. What's your mindset when you're teaching? And it's like, who are you? Like, who do you want to be out there for your students? Because I know you're Thomas McGuin,
Yeah.
but like who are you also kind of pulling from? Like, does that make sense?
Absolutely. Like you said, number one, be you. You have to be you because students can just sniff this artificial approach to teaching or
Oh
and
yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
the Gracies do a good job of creating this floor and this system we're familiar with like the SPF formula, and
Hmm.
the goal of it is to not mimic it identically. It's to create exponential growth for the student in as little time as possible because they're there for an hour of the day. They have so much life going on, and we want to create, maximum growth in that amount of time that they're spending with us.
Yeah.
But just being around. So we've been around Heat On pretty extensively for like the last 20 years. So you do like you chat you there's like these pillars. I don't know if it's like four or five, but typically there's like that hold the table up. There's typically like your one pillar, and there's a couple other pillars that made impressions on you that just naturally, if you live in the South for a little bit, you're going to start having a little bit of a Southern twang. If you end up going to New York, you might start, it's still you, but there's these things that influence you. But you don't want to be a chameleon. You just want to
Yeah.
you want to be influenced by people you trust. And that's who we are as people. We're a product of all of our life experiences. So yeah, you're definitely influenced by the people that you really surround yourself in or watch a lot of. But you got to be careful not to, sometimes you'll hear like certain people talking like they watch so much. When we go through these processes or certifications, they watch so much Henner. You start hearing them talk like that, and it's like, don't do
Yeah.
that. Don't do
Yeah.
that. Be you, but mimicking them is good, but still be you.
Yeah, bro, that's the one thing I've noticed about a lot of certified instructors. So when I was going through this ICP thing, I would watch other instructors put out videos, excuse me, and I didn't realize that a lot of them are mimicking because
Yeah.
they kind of enunciate like, all right, guys, today I'm going to show you an arm lock because now when I'm here and like every person that I watch, it's like I understand now where people are like, man, you sound like Henner or you sound like Hedon. It's like,
Yes,
I'm not trying to be. It's just it works for them. So why wouldn't it work for us? So
for
that's
sure.
that's the one thing I've noticed. So it's like if there's any I guess similarities with all of us is that we do enunciate a lot more.
You can't help it. You're so engulfed in it. And once you go back home, there's an assimilation process where you're
A
becoming more
little,
civilized again,
yeah, yeah. I
but you can't
agree.
help it.
Yeah, because the further you're away from the West Coast and Jiu-Jitsu heaven, you do kind of get back into the groove of things. But man, like
Most
when you go,
definitely.
but yeah, like, but when you go back out there to GU, it's like it kind of starts all over again, but not really because you're already established, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what classes do you enjoy teaching the most, man? Are you a kids instructor? Or are you like an adult instructor? So like, which one do you find the
Definitely.
most? I'm sure it's all fun, of course, but for you,
Yeah.
man,
Definitely adults. Like for the kids, Black Belt Club,
yeah,
and John does a great job with kids. Our wives come in, they're both purple belts. They do a great job with kids and the women. But for me, like, yeah, just like kind of like who I am, like definitely enjoy the adults. I love Gracie combatives. I love like the trap and roll class and the triangle class. Those are definitely my two, like those are the two moves I probably use more than anything.
yep.
Um, but yeah, definitely that. And I've been diving deep into leg locks for a long time. So I like on Wednesday nights we kind of like cater towards like a more of like a leg entanglement game. And I love doing that as well, just because it's a lot of students don't see a lot of it. and it's been around for like, man, I remember when I was a blue belt, Henner was doing straight footlocks before footlocks were like there was no John Danaher around, like or no Gordon Ryan, but Henner had crazy success with straight footlocks, and he was like, man, I'm so long in the straight footlock, it treats me so well. And so, he had a big impression on, man, straight foot, I'm long, I'm 6'2", straight foot locks. So definitely like leg locks are something that I really enjoy. We do like some seminars where, I don't know if you guys do this, but like we're having Mason Fowler come in on October 14th. He's a UFC BJJ light heavyweight champion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But we do like our own seminars. Like, for example, like there's things that you're going to specialize in and Howard specializes in, but we can only teach kind of like what's on the schedule. Like there's some classes I'm like, man, I wish I could keep you guys here for 3 more hours. This is my
Yeah.
thing. So we'll have like in October, typically I do like a big leg lock seminar, and then we'll maybe hit that like 3 times a year where there's like the entries, the submissions, and then the defenses, because we can't really dive deep into these things as we're progressing through the curriculum, and it's like, man, they're only going to see this 2 times in the whole year if they came to class those 2 times. So we'll run
Yeah.
like specialty seminars, and mine's typically always leg locks.
Yeah, yeah, dude, that's awesome. So we just finished up the leg lock chapter, and it's funny how you say like, well, not funny, but it's interesting how you say there's a lot of different nuances. So I'm rather shorter, so leg locks aren't definitely it's not something that I can always get to, but just appreciating the counter to them because I've had people try to get my legs, and I was teaching fundamentals last night for Master Cycle, and I said, man, to appreciate counter is to appreciate the move itself. So once you know how to do the move or see it, you understand why we like why defense becomes so important.
Yeah,
Um
yeah,
I'm more of a kids class man myself, but I love it all, man, because and I think the reason why is because I started teaching karate at around 15 for my karate instructor, so I was exposed pretty early on to that, and then teaching adults was it wasn't challenging because I've always gravitated towards just anyone because I feel like I had the personality to connect in that sense, very much how we met. But I remember being a teen and just having to teach adults, and that was it was a little scary. And Zach Cunningham did a segment recently where he talks about that. He goes way in depth about it because I didn't know that he had fears of teaching adults. But then when Howard said to me a long time, he said, "Bro, just have a conversation with them because people don't care what you know until they know that you care." And when I took that approach, I said, man, that's deep because when the students know that we care, like so much can happen. And I'm sure you would agree with that.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, you can get caught up in your own head when thinking what they're thinking when they're not even thinking what you're thinking.
yeah, because they just want to learn, and it's tough because sometimes people need to, I always say sometimes people need to fix their faces when they're watching us because some people are like this. Some people kind of have that resting, B word face. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I'm like, guys, you guys can smile.
I had a class like that actually this week. I called my wife after and I was like, I either taught the worst class ever, or like they were just completely out of it. Because sometimes like you're coming in with great energy. You being a kids instructor, you're coming into the gym all the time just with a pep to your step. Like even if it's adult class, like you have to have a certain personality
For
to
sure.
like love kids. I love kids, but like love teaching kids and being good at teaching kids. There's like a really cool approach to life, where things are just typically always sunny outside. Um, but I had a class where I was just like, man, like I'm like, I needed somebody to be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And there was nobody in the class. We probably had like 15, 16 people. And I was kind of like a comic just bombing, like just like watching people like, wow, okay, I got to draw this from someplace else. So I remember telling her, hey, I probably I feel like I did a very poor job tonight because nobody was in it, which is uncommon. Like I don't know what it was, but
Yeah.
it was a late class, but that'll happen.
But sometimes your worst class could be someone's best class. So
Yeah,
sometimes you got to have that approach too. But it's hard because we want to teach our absolute best
yeah,
class and we do thrive off the energy of the class. So when the class is kind of boring, it's like, man, like maybe I suck today as a teacher. I don't know.
we have our bad days. I try to like come in. I'm not like I'm pretty energetic. Like I would say, like if like between Hito and Henner, the way I run classes is very like I look at the clock. I have certain things I want to do. I want to get them done I want to get them all done, and I want to see things just flowing. So there's not typically a whole lot of time for me to overthink it because I'm just doing. And when they're doing moves, I'm like helping people fix things. You know, when you're an instructor, you're thinking and moving and doing so many things all at once. It can be quite exhausting when you're done. Like 2 hours of our work can be, you know, I hate saying this, you know, because people have, you know, 40, 50-hour work weeks, but it feels like it's like an 8-hour work day. There's so much, you're pouring so much of yourself out in those couple hours of instruction. And if you don't feel that way, you're not giving everything you have to those students. So
Yeah.
usually I don't know, don't overthink it, but I was like, man, you have those classes where they're just a complete dud. It was like an elevator sweep class too, where I
I
either
say,
didn't you do like the bad guy. I don't know if I articulated the indicator well enough, or and I was like, man, like something I did made things very difficult. And then you could tell there was frustration in the room because they weren't doing very good. They weren't looking very good. I tried fixing it. It was very difficult.
it's just better for next time, you know. But man, it's reassuring to know that what you're saying, we all face that, you know,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's the genuine like, you know, talks that I love having on this platform. So before we exit out, man, talk about like what's a day in a life for you like? Because I know you're a school owner, you teach jujitsu, and you love collecting wrestling figures, which I absolutely love. But like, it's a Monday morning. Let's go from there.
Yeah, so the first thing I do is so like I'm an Orthodox Christian, so um on this end of the room it's a lot of wrestling figures. On the side that's facing me, I have a lot of like if you're familiar with Orthodoxy, just a lot of icons like windows into heaven. And I come into my room and pray. Like I start every day with just prayer, and I'm just really grateful for everything really in life and just to be alive, and just really try to center myself from like that point on. I'm in Orthodox seminary school right now, so I'm studying a lot. So I have a lot of homework that I do. I typically do a lot of reading in the morning and very late at night.
Hmm.
So I'll get a lot of that stuff out of the way where I'm reading, and after my prayers, hang out with my kid around lunch. My wife just does a phenomenal job, you know, supporting everything that we do as a business, as a family, and then kind of like what I'm trying to do at the church. And then maybe about like 2 o'clock, I'll spend like an hour just prepping for class. I still to this day will watch Gracie Combatives, the drills, and then on my way to work, I'll listen to it on like two speed, just like I kind of flip through it because I just want to make sure the verbiage and the things I'm saying is very concise. And typically on Mondays is when I game plan the master cycle for the whole week. So I'll spend maybe like 30 to 45 minutes on how I want to approach the classes that I'm going to teach. And then throughout the day, I'm typically talking to John about like, hey, this month, we're in Mount. I'm leaning towards teaching, you know, clock chokes or chop and rolls or whatever it may be. And then we try to get each other on the same page because we don't have like listed techniques that we're going to teach on the calendar like we do for Gracie Combatives.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of game planning till about like 4 o'clock. And about 4 o'clock, I'm usually heading to the gym, and nowadays making sure I stretch. Before I could just walk on the gym and just go, but now I'm stretching, and every once in a while I'll get a workout in because I can tell my body's needs to be a little bit more fortified now I'm getting a little bit older. And then like just the best part of the day, for me selfishly is just being at the gym, teaching, and as an instructor, they just become so close to family. It's like this friends family. They don't become students or like they don't- or they somehow change from students into like these people you care about.
Yeah.
You pour so much into them that it's not money walking through the door or money being on the mats. It's um, there's just something about having a full class, like having like a big family there, and like being in charge or being somebody who can like help cultivate or lead the family. And then I come home and as you talk to my wife, I've got about a 30-minute drive home. So I'll talk to my wife on the way home, chat with her when I get back a little bit. Then I close my night with, so I'll pray here. I got like candles. It'll be all dim, and I'll light some candles, light some incense, and just kind of like thank God for the day, and kind of just redo it every day really until Sunday when that's the best time, church time.
Dude, I love it, man. And I love how, like, even when you're talking about jujitsu and your commute and just prepping for the class, how you always live in this state of gratitude, man.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty special. I did want to ask one thing, and you mentioned it when you're teaching with your brother, because I'm assuming you guys, do you guys alternate, or like, do you guys find yourself teaching the same classes? And if you do teach the same classes, so let me start with that. How does that dynamic work? Because I know you guys are tight, of course, you guys are family, but as instructors, do you kind of just naturally go off each other, or like if your brother's teaching, do you kind of just automatically step in as his assistant, or is it more like a designated role, like, hey John, let me take this one today, or just happen organically? Because that I'm definitely
Yeah.
always intrigued by, because when you watch Hen or Hedon teach, they kind of go off each other, but sometimes they kind of don't, because I feel like one is kind of talking over the other. It's a constant, not that they're battling, but they're trying to get their points across. But I feel Hedon is very more laid back, and he'll let Henner take the center stage, but he'll jump in when necessary. Is that the same dynamic for John and yourself?
Yeah, like we teach once for sure on Mondays and sometimes on Fridays. We used to teach day and night together, and there is that dynamic like with Hito and Henner where we're just different type of instructors and there's different nuances. So we've I've been with him since the womb. We lived together, all the way until we were like 33. Like, we've been together. So we really know how to bounce off each other quite well. But we noticed probably about 5, 6 years ago that we're we're dominant teachers. So we have our own type of like, oh, this is what we want. This is the outcome we want out of the class. So we had to split up to where it's like, hey, um, I see it going this way, or I wanted to cover this variation. He wanted to go that way. So, or he does it with the guillotine with the thumb facing you, so his shoulder can hit the shoulder. I maybe wrap the guillotine, grabbing the wrist. So you have these little nuances. So we kind of, yeah, we ended up having to, like, I'll teach my classes, you teach your classes. One class a week for sure is perfect. We'll flow with each other, but like we won't, if you do it too much, you kind of like you step on each other's. I don't know if you guys get that. Like if you teach with like Howard or to where like in Howard, I've been following Howard for a while. You have so much respect for him as a black belt, but even being a purple belt, like you still have this approach that you're like, man, I can teach this. Like I could do this class. Howard, like if you weren't here, like trust me, I could run this class a certain way and.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know if you have that with other instructors, but
No, that's interesting you say that, and thank you for sharing that about your brother. It's cool that you guys have mutually, or maybe at some point, just had that, private discussion. Say, hey, let's I'll do it this way, or not do
yeah.
it this way, but like you have your class, I have my class, because like you said in the beginning or during this interview, man, it is a special time when you're out there teaching and connecting, because you do want to invest and pour so much of your soul into like each student. But to go back to what you're saying about Howard, yes and no, because I mean, I know my role and I know my place. So meaning that if I'm out there teaching, well, actually he lets me teach any class I want, basically, meaning like I'm the only paid instructor, meaning like I'm the only full-time employee under him. So by that, I'm scheduled to teach or be available to teach every class. So knowing that expectation going in, I'm like you. I prep before class. I still watch the videos. Even if it's a lesson I've done hundreds of times, doesn't matter, because it's it's almost like the Mandela effect, where like maybe I missed something and someone say, "Oh no, it's in the video." I'm like, "No, I watched it." Then I go back saying, "Bro, you were right." At the 20-minute mark, he does say XYZ. So,
Yeah.
and man, students will fact check you, bro, because sometimes I'll be teaching and a white belt who's always watching the video say, "Well, Nick, in the video, Henner says," and I always say, "Guys, listen, I only have an hour to show you what I can. You guys have the rest of your life, and the video is at home. So, guys, reference that." And but it's nice because I just know that they care, of course. But going back to when like Howard's teaching, no, I feel it just happens organically, meaning like there's times when I'm teaching class and he'll step in, and he always tells me to like, in advance, like, hey, get them warmed up, get them started, and then I'll be out. And then when he comes out, I just naturally, I don't know, just because it's almost like a pecking order, I'll turn to him, and there's times where he says, "No, bro, like you're the man, I got it," or "Hey, I'll be your assistant," and that meant so much because he's trusting in what I do, and like, and because I care so much. Sometimes I had someone else on the other day, and she's a business owner at a surf shop, but she was saying sometimes your assistant will care a lot more about the business. And obviously, I know Howard cares, of course, but I love this place. This place is my home, so I'm gonna go 1,000%. So, but no, when it comes to teaching, man, no, I know my role. I'm there to help. I'm there to teach. If he wants me to teach the whole night, I will. But when he wants to teach, I'm like, yes, I get to be the best assistant, and I don't have to use so much energy.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. Yeah, it's got to be a nice dynamic having a one and a two to where I think it flows a little bit better rather than, me and John are such or such equals when it comes to just jujitsu that you can kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm not sure if you guys have any assistant instructors yet, but I'm sure you will in the future. But something that Howard told me and he tells the rest of our instructor team is that you'll only get as good teaching when the head instructor's in the room, meaning that we have some rookie instructors. And I remember when Howard's in the room, even if he's just watching, and even myself being, having taught for a while, I noticed that sometimes people get nervous and they won't truly be themselves because maybe they're afraid or they just aren't ready to open up. But when you take myself or Howard out of the room, oh my goodness, do these people like blossom, So he said, like, yeah, like you'll only be as good as the head instructors in the room. But when you take the head person out, because that's why, like, when you go to GU, bro, and you see Henner out of the room, like, why do you think Zach Cunningham and Bobby do so well? Yeah, they're great instructors, they're great people, but Henner's not there. So it's allowed them to grow. And seeing that was definitely, that was motivating because I'm not sure if you saw it, but at GU, Henner was sitting in on a kid's class, like a student. He's just watching. Zach's teaching. And at no point were people looking over at Henner thinking, hey, Zach doing the right thing? No. I thought that was commendable. And I actually messaged Henner. I said, yo, like, bro, like, I know you don't need to hear from me, but that was motivating to see that you being the top dog, you being the owner, like you were just sitting there letting your students shine. And I think that's a huge takeaway for the growth of not only the head instructor, but just the school as a whole.
They do a good job of instilling confidence. It's from since I've known them, instilling confidence in their instructors and really like duplicating who they are. Like when you go to LA, you want Hito Henner in the class. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, they're not teaching the class. But then as the class is going on, you're like, this class is amazing. Like they're teaching, like it's almost like not a difference, Of course it is because
Oh,
no
yeah.
one knows how special they are until you meet them. They have electric personalities, and their jujitsu is it's unreal to be honest. You know
Yeah.
that. But
I've never
yeah,
rolled
like
with them before.
oh,
But I'm sure you have.
yeah. Like we've been pretty close with Hedon for so long that yeah, Hedon's try to compare it to like a maybe like if an orangutan power where it's not strong but it's grippy and like there's invisible nooses, but then sometimes he loosens the noose and lets you out of it and he's like kind of floating like if you could imagine jiu-jitsu in heaven. It's like wow, it's so pleasant here. And then Henner is like if you're in an ocean and you're drowning, and then he might not push your head down behind underneath water, but he might just be like, just gently submerge you underwater. So you feel like you're drowning perpetually. So there is this like dichotomy where it's like, wow, and one could kill me, and he's so gracious. And
Yeah.
then Henner, like he could kill you, but he's not just gonna allow maybe it's different. Maybe it was different with me and John because we were competing so much. But
Yeah.
he'll allow you to swim out into the deep end, and he might help you go down a little quicker.
Yeah. Howard says rolling with them is like being in a washing machine. You're just all over the place, but it's so very controlled. Like, and I heard someone say and they were black, but they said, yeah, man, like I roll with Henry Heat on, bro. I felt like a wipeout. I said,
100%.
I said, wow, that's crazy. Just the levels.
We were in our black belt test and doing, you're like in there with like 15 other brown belts, and there's black belts that are in these groups that are coming testing you, and I'm like, oh, doing pretty well, and they always separate me and John, so I'm looking over at John and I'm doing pretty well, and then like I look back into my group and Henner's in my group, and I'm like, oh crap. And I was like going from doing very well and feeling very good to like I'm not going to get my black belt, because he did whatever he wanted. I look over at John, and John was getting swept over his head once, and then Hedon brought him back and swept over his head again, and then Hedon brought him back. And like, we don't stink, but it
Yeah.
does. It's like you realize that some people in the outside world are like, the Gracies this, the Gracies that. It's like you don't understand until you roll with them. They roll with you guys. I knew them in their 20s when like they're so nice now. Like
They competed too.
they were so. I remember watching them with like there'd be UFC fighters who would come in and they had these private rooms back at Gracie Academy. I forget what road it was on. But like this isn't the truth, but like these guys would come in and want to like get some good rolls in with Hedon and Henner, and it looked like they were being almost like tortured. Like they didn't want to like quit on the Gracies, and Hedon and Henner are like they're sweating profusely, but not like breathing heavy. And I saw it with very, I don't want to name any names, but very, very high level UFC fighters, world champion UFC fighters. Even there was some mornings where you see them grappling with like high level jiu-jitsu guys that you didn't know. Oh, the Gracies, they train with these guys. I had no idea. And they're just a problem. They're 6'4". When you look at their feet and their hands, they look primate almost. And they're very well hydrated. They eat very well. There's not a lot of problems. And the unique thing is they're the hardest person I've ever experienced to tap out. Like me and John have grappled with, John, like the Gary Tonins of the world. Like John competed against Gary Tonin, David Garmo. We've grappled Fabricio Verdum, and you grapple these guys, and it's like, wow, they're hard at their biggest quality is you can't tap them out. Like if they wanted to knock it, and that the greatest example of that is Hedon versus Andre Galvao in that
Oh
big
yeah.
Morris match, to where
Oh yeah.
I remember him before that match telling me, "Hey, I'm really pushing this keep it playful message for jiu-jitsu. Like no one jiu-jitsu is going this other way, and I want to bring it back to what jiu-jitsu is, where it's like, hey, there's keeping it real, but no one's keeping it playful." So he's like, "I'm going to do this with Andre," and I was like, "Don't do that. Like just destroy him."
You said
It's like,
that?
yeah, I was like almost because this is Cash, we were like 28. I was like, no, just like like if you can take him out, take him out. He's like, no, I want to demonstrate the power of what we do, what the power of jujitsu. And
Yeah.
then he gave Andre like some of Andre's best positions. I remember thinking like, I was like, oh no, like, oh crap. Like he can't tap out Hedon, right? And I was like, maybe he can. And then Hedon in the last 5 minutes, like he said, he was just started turning it up, and it was quite impressive. So I always try to remind myself, like, hey, he used to have a coin he'd give people, like, keep it playful, keep it real, and you'd flip it. And yeah,
Whichever one it
especially back
landed
then.
on.
Yeah. Especially back then, it was all keep it real, keep it real, keep it real. Never die, never surrender. But Hedon and Henner did a very good job of telling people things they probably never heard before. I remember being in bottom side control, and I would compete so much. He's like, "Gosh, you act like you don't want to be here." And I was like, "I don't." And he's like, "I know. I never saw my grandfather get in bottom side control get off his back," which might not be true. But I was like, "Oh, how did he escape?" He's like, "He escaped when the escape was there." He's
Yeah.
like, "You're forcing escapes, and you're in a position. I can tell when you're in bottom side control. This is a place you don't want to be." He's like, "Just tell yourself you want to be here, and then you'll experience the position." He's like, "Everybody wants to be someplace they're not, and
Oh
he's like,
man.
you want to be here." And then so I was like, "Oh yeah." So I started studying bottom mount, bottom side mount, and like, how do I control the position from the bottom position? How do I defend? Like, I always tell the students, this is from Hedon, like when you want to escape, if we could speak words, it's just escape, 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 escape based on movements, but it should be defend, 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 escape, defend, 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 escape. Like so it's a whole. You just flip it upside down a little bit. It's like you don't want to be there, but tell yourself you want to be there. You'll be calm, calculated, and the opportunity will present itself, and you'll be ready for it instead of getting controlled perpetually while you're trying to escape.
Man, that's awesome to hear because we hear the saying comfortable in uncomfortable positions,
Yeah.
but and yeah, thank you, Thomas, for sharing that notion because I'm going to carry that on. Just force yourself to want to be there, because there's times when I can't get out, but like I want to, but I've adapted really well with the defend mindset, but I'm still trying to escape, but just be there in the moment. Man, dude, that's crazy. Thank you for sharing that because I never heard it
Yeah.
I never heard it said that way, from a jujitsu sense. So that's pretty cool. I remember I was at a seminar in New Jersey with Hidon. This was a few years ago, and he was showing a technique, and it was actually side mount. And there was this big purple belt like bodybuilder. Um, he was jacked, bro. And Hidon's like, "Hey, hit me like." Here, my friend, come here, just hold me down, just hold him down. And the guy was, dude, like in his face, I think he really thought that he was gonna hold him down. And Howard was just like, yo, bro, watch this. I'm like, "Dude, I don't know what's gonna happen." He was just like, I do, watch this. So, so the purple belt gets on top, and I guess he don't have like 10 seconds to escape. Escapes no problem, block and shoot, combatives. So then it's time to flip the script. And then the guy's like, oh yeah, hold me down things. I'll show you how I get out. Now, I don't know if he was being playful or if he was being serious. So he was just like, let's do it, guys. And he said, keep it playful. And, they slap hands, fist bump, whatever. And Hedon side mounts him. And the guy's going buck wild crazy. And then Hedon's like turning his whole body almost like a dead seal. And he's just like, guys, I don't know what this is right now. But I'm just holding him here. And like, bro, the whole room was just like dying hysterically. But it's interesting how he's really mastered just maximizing connection, Like he's
Yeah.
literally doing 360s on this guy, and I'll never forget because the guy was super big, like super strong, but he couldn't do anything against him. So pressure for sure. It's
We were we were at Hedon's house, gosh, probably at 25, 24 years old, and there was like 12 of us that were invited to his house, and we're just staying there for the week. And we had a game that he played in the garage. Him and Henner were there, and it was stopper and goer. And the first time we played the game, he was like, "All right, we're gonna have like everyone's gonna be sitting around the mat." He had like his garage matted out, and one person's gonna be the goer, and one person's gonna be the stopper. And everybody wanted to be the goer at first. So he's
yeah.
like, "Oh, like I don't remember who was the goer. Maybe it was John at first, but it was one of the younger guys." And then Hedon's like, "All right, I'll just be the stopper." And it's like it's like that sounds boring. Like, I want to do things.
Yeah.
And 5 minutes, 10 minutes into it, you like every time I play the game, no one wanted to be the goer. All anybody wanted to be was a stopper because the stopper conserves energy, is countering everything as they're not doing anything but stopping. They're building confidence, stopping this, stopping that, confidence building, energy conserving. And the goer is mentally being defeated, like unsuccessful, unsuccessful, exhausting. I'm getting depleted. So it's kind of like a unique approach to where like, oh my goodness, like energy conservation, confidence grows, like not losing too many techniques that you're employing where the other person, they're getting stop, 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 stop. Confidence just dwindles, energy dwindles. And it's just beautiful. Like you'll see this when you're rolling people. You're like, wow, 3 minutes into the roll, this has become mentally and physically an unfair battle. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's cool, man. And it stays consistent too, just those battles, in jujitsu. Last question, I promise. You and your brother, who wins?
Oh yeah, John. Yeah, like we have good roles, but John, like absolutely. John was as a blue belt, he was a no-gi ADCC regional champion.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
yeah, he went up against many, and he just did this tournament to prepare for his first amateur fight against a really talented amateur fighter, this guy Ed Johnson, and he ended up winning the whole tournament and he it moved him on to grapple Gary Tonin in an ADCC. I think it was like a national qualifier. But yeah, he's phenomenal. I get him like maybe I'll get him like 30 to 40% of the time,
Yeah.
but he's just it's the same thing with the Gracies. Like he's extremely extremely difficult to submit, like extremely, and he his techniques just he's just better at the basics. Like it's kind of like watching, I don't want to compare it to Jordan, but like his first step is just everyone has a first step, but he's just quicker. Every movement it's fluid, it's sharp, it's he's better at the basics than anybody I've ever met other than Hidon Henner, and he does dive into like complex things, but there's just this safety net of he can kind of do what he wants because his defense is just he's more. I remember quickly before we go that Hidon Henner came out with like principle based jiu-jitsu, the 32 principles, and it was around COVID, and he's like what is it? I don't know if you remember them saying this. Like, how do you do, like they say this person has it, Michael Jordan has it, but what is it? And they
Yeah.
kind of defined it as like an athlete or a student who's more principle based rather than technique based. And I was like, that's what John does. Like I'm more of I study, I read books, I'm very analytical. My instruction's that way. We both kind of like will watch the videos and game plan. He can go into a class and just teach. Chet was very much like this, where he wouldn't know kind of what somebody was asking, so he'd say, "Put me in the move," and he would just feel his way. Even with leg locks, when I started learning leg locks, I was getting very successful with him against him, and
Yeah.
he just started applying principles. I know way more leg lock defenses, and I can identify what's going on, especially in legs, at a much higher rate than him. But he can defend legs better than me because of his principle-based approach to jiu-jitsu with removing wedges, clearing knee lines, slipping heels. And it's like that in every single position. It's just techniques just absorbed. You just don't feel stressed about learning techniques. They either absorb into you or they don't. You rep them, you do your job, you rep the moves. You want your body to know the move, but he's more like, how can you identify the make it or break it, almost like the Jenga pieces in every single position, every single technique, and that Jenga piece never gets pulled. He's a and that's a hard thing to grapple.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
so,
and which in turn it makes you a lot better too. And it's
yeah,
made you both better. No, it's awesome that you guys have each other, not just as siblings, but business partners and teaching partners as well. So it's awesome. So I mean, yeah, both you and your brother have done a phenomenal job, and you don't need to hear that from me. And just going back to why we're even here, just that time I met you at GU, and just again, I do my best, or I just in a state of gratitude, and I always reflect after the fact. And I was like, man, like when I was making my list of people that I wanted on, you were on the first page back half though, because like I had a whole list of like people I knew personally, but then I'm thinking, man, like who can I outreach jujitsu wise? And like you were up there, and it's because of that moment we met at GU, and like you giving me the time just to it's like you treated me like I was a person, bro, like another human being, because I feel sometimes people get to this place where I don't know if it's the belt or their status, where they think they're better, but I never got that from you, bro. And I just want you to know that's something that I've always remembered about you. And maybe no one's ever told you that, but I'm telling you that today, man. I think you're like a good dude, and like what you guys are doing out in Indiana is amazing.
I appreciate that. I remember Chet always had a picture in his hanging up in his Lagrange gym of Elio Gracie wearing a blue belt, and it always stuck with me, and just being a follower of Jesus, where he says, and calling his apostles friends, and he just I really do like I'm really grateful you say that, because
Yeah.
you can start putting yourself on a pedestal, and you should take yourself off pretty quickly, because they have something they're very good at, and it might not be jujitsu, but it might be giving therapy, or an attorney, or working hard at the factory, but everybody has their own gifts, and there isn't one gift that's supreme or superior over the other one. So I appreciate that. I'm grateful to meet people like you, and I'm happy that we were able to reconnect. And God willing, I'll be there this December. It's the first time I've been back in a couple of years because of my neck injury. So I'm looking forward to like reconnecting with all you guys, and
Yeah,
really, doing this maybe again at like 70 years old. Like we'll be doing this for a while.
for sure. Yeah, we have a couple of students in the queue for their black belt. So they'll be out in December if that's what you're
Oh,
referring to
no
for the
kidding. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
for
I'm
the
going to go
black belt
help.
test.
Yeah. Send me their names, and then maybe I can kind of like look out, connect with them as
Yep.
well, and maybe kick it while we're down there.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. That'd be great. Thomas, where can people find you guys on social media? Like your
So
CTC and you.
Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, southbend.com on the web. Social media, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu South Bend. We're in Notre Dame country. We actually just won our second award for the best fitness center and gym in Michiana, which is Lower Michigan, Upper Indiana, and we think that has just an awful lot to do with what the Gracies offer. This just approach to jiu-jitsu, this approach to people, and allowing us to be who we are, as instructors. So yeah, on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu South Bend. And on the web, you can see all of our gyms at graceuniversity.com, really see what we all have to offer. Because the Gracies do a good job of really doing their best to duplicate who they are. And I think me and you both can kind of confess that, you know, we might not be great, you know, like we don't want to like toot our own horn, but like we definitely are committed to the process. And yeah, and on the web, like I said, graciejujitsusouthbend.com.
Awesome, guys. Yeah, I mean, awesome, Thomas. Yeah, guys, make sure you guys check him out. Again, Thomas McGuin, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate everything you're doing in the community and jiu-jitsu, and just thank you for diving in and sharing some of your mindset and your story today with us.
You're very welcome. Appreciate you, Nick.
All right, man. Later.